Welcome everyone to lesson 10.4. We're going to look at different types of data in graph form. So we're going to go straight to the examples since most of you are familiar with these different types of graphs. The first one we're going to make is going to be a bar graph. We have a set of data here. It asks us to make a bar graph with that. So remember, with a bar graph, we need to be sure and label our axes. So on one of these axes, we're going to have the year, and on the second axis, we're going to have time. And we have the information in the table that we can use. So down here, we'll put the year. And then on this side, we'll put the time. And then we have 4 different years that we're looking at. Oops. Try that again. We have our freshman year in college for this runner, our sophomore year in college for this runner, our junior year in college, and senior year in college. For our time, the smallest time increment is 4.5 minutes. A little more than that, and the largest is 5 minutes. So we're going to want to make sure that we leave enough room to be able to see those increments. So maybe start at 4 minutes and go up by 15-second intervals. And we definitely want to be sure that we label all of our increments. So that's 4.5, 4:45, 5, 5:15. And I don't really need to go any further than that. That's 5:45. That'll be enough. So for our times, see if I can write it small enough down here for you to be able to see it. We're going 4 minutes and then up by 15-second intervals. So 4:15, 30. That way, as we make our graphs, it's very easy for each bar to be able to tell which number corresponds with it. Also remember that when you're creating these graphs, writing your labels on your axes or labeling the graph are all part of the graphing process. So be sure that you don't forget to do these as you're making your graphs. Squeeze them all in there for you. And then really I can stop on this next one. So for my first bar, I go freshman year, 5 minutes, 10 seconds. I can make my first bar here, 5 minutes, not quite 15. So something like that. For the sophomore year, it's 4 minutes, 58 seconds. Not quite 5 minutes, but really close. Then for the junior year, 4 minutes, 42 seconds. And finally, for the senior year, 4 minutes, 37 seconds. Something like that. We also need to give a title for the entire graph. So for this, you might want to put something that relates the information. It's a way to communicate what information is given. So in the problem, it tells us these are times. These are college runners' times for the 1,500 meter race. So something like that. As long as your title explains what type of information you're given, it doesn't necessarily have to always match exactly what the book says. Let's try a different type of graph this time. This time we're going to make a line graph. It says make a line graph of the average price of a gallon of gasoline from 1972 through 1980. And it tells us that the prices are for every other year. So for this one, as I go through and look at it, I'm dealing with the years from 1972 until 1980. So I'm going to put this over here to give you a little easier view of it. So on the bottom, I know that I'm dealing with years. I'm going to go by twos here. So there is our data for our years. And then along the side, I'm dealing with the cost per gallon. The least expensive year was 38 cents. The most expensive year was $1.25. So this is going to be cost per gallon, and I'll move this a little bit to give you some more room to see it. So this is going to be cost per gallon in dollars. And so since we start at 37 cents, we'll just go up. We'll go by quarters. So start at the top here. The most expensive is $1.25. So let's go $1.50, $1.50, $1.25, $1, 75 cents, 50 cents, 25 cents, and starting at 0. Kind of make it look something like that, easier to see. As you go through and do this, some line graphs will have each and every number lined in here. Some of them, it'll just kind of be freehand. I'm going to freehand this one. So at 1972, you're at 38 cents. So when I do this one, let me go ahead and put lines in. I changed my mind for you here. Put some lines in just because it may be difficult to tell on the computer what lines correspond to what. So as you go through and you do this, be careful that you keep your lines matched up with your amounts as you're writing your graph. So for the first one, I'm looking at 38 cents, which is between 25 and 50, almost right in the middle. For the second one, I'm looking at 51 cents, and I'll go back and connect these together here in just a minute. For the third one, I'm looking at 60 cents. Fourth one, I'm looking at 67 cents. And then for the last one, $1.25. And then I just want to go through and connect my dots since it's a line graph. And keep going with them. And there's my line graph. Also, I want to be sure and give my title. It's going to be, it says up in the top, our average price per gallon. Could have put average cost, something like that. All right, let's try one more. The last one may be the most challenging for you. So for the last graph, you're drawing a pie chart. You'll notice on the left, I've given you some reminders about constructing a pie chart. You want to make each quantity into a percent. Then, to figure out how much of the circle that it's going to take up, how many degrees, you'll multiply that percent written as a decimal by 360. Then you can draw When you're constructing a circle graph on your own, it's helpful to use a protractor to get your labels more exact, to get your positions or your pie chart pieces more exact. Obviously, I'm not going to do that on the board. And then to end, just like we ended with the others, labeling each part and giving the entire graph its own title. If I look at this, I see that I have a U.S. Census Bureau. That's what I'm looking at here. And it has given different numbers of people in a city. And I'm supposed to relate these different people to the totals. So first thing I want to do is to make sure that I write each quantity as a percent. So for the first one, the different quantities that I have Hispanics, I have non-Hispanic white, I have black, and I have Asian. So these are the different types of information that were collected from the Census Bureau. For the different types, each one, I need to figure out the total number of people that were surveyed or that were a part of this bureau, and then I can write them as a percent. So you would need to add up 21,000, 133,000, 20,500, and 7,500. That's how you're going to get your total to be able to write a percent. So when you do that, then you can express each of these pieces of information out of the total. That's the part a lot of us get stumbled on and forget how to do. Now, once you do that, go ahead and write Let's see, it's not letting me type it. Let's try it again. So for the example, on the first one, I would write 21,000 over my total that I got when I added all of them together was 182,000. Then I can find a total percent for this first number. When I do that division, I end up with 0.12, which when we write it as a percent is 12%. For the second value, I have 133 out of 82,000. 133,000 out of 182,000, which should give me 0.73. Move my decimal 2 times, I end up with 73%. For the third one, I have 20,500 over 182,000, which would give me 0.11 or 11%. And for the last one, I have 7,500 over 182,000, which would give me 0.04 or 4%. To find the degrees that each of these take up, I could take that 0.12, for example, and multiply it times 360, which would give me the degrees for the first circle of 43. For the second circle, 0.73 times 360 would equal 263 degrees. For the third one, 0.11 times 360 would give me 40 degrees. And then for the last one, 0.04 times my 360 would give me 14 degrees. Again, I would want to use a protractor to try to be as exact as I can. But for this, let's say we'll start with our given radius. And then the first one is 263 degrees. So that's more than half, but not quite 2/3. So it would be something like this, for example. Then we have 43 degrees. And 40 degrees and 14 degrees. Again, this is why you want to measure them, to try to make them as close as you can. You would also want to label them. This is, we said, non-Hispanic white. Which the percent was 73%. Then you may have to kind of put them on the side if you're not having enough room. This one was the black, which was 11%. Down here was Hispanic, which we said was 12%. And this one we said was the Asian at 4%. So this is probably the most complicated one, the one that will take you the longest amount of time. But most of you have done these, are more familiar with the pie charts, the line graphs, and the bar graphs than you have been with other information. So good luck on these, guys.